A warm welcome back to the channel with a massive aircraft order being unveiled by European plane maker Airbus, an airline resuming flights to Hong Kong, and in some exciting news for Philippine Airlines, they're eyeing expansion towards the United States. And why not begin there, with new cities listed as possible options for the carrier to begin flying towards in the future. The Philippine National Airline believes rebuilding its connectivity, and therefore growing in the North American space, is going to be absolutely critical to its long-term operations. And as a result, more markets are being added to its network, with Chicago and Houston being unveiled as prospective locations. While these markets have been listed, again, I'll reiterate, as simply prospective ones, studies are ongoing and suggest that further locations in the United States could be established sometime in the future. The carrier is said to be harnessing locations where hundreds of thousands of Filipinos have moved. Moreover, it will study markets with great tourism levels to and from their home country. Delivery of more A350-1000 jets will make flying an enhanced schedule towards the US possible. However, the airline hasn't ruled out the requirement for additional units in the future to facilitate the desire to expand. Based on fleet data, Philippine Airlines has 67 aircraft listed as active, and this does include a commitment to the A350-900, which just see 2 units active. The aging Boeing 777 fleet leads the primary wide-body operation with 9 active units, but the airline would obviously like to now transition towards the more efficient A350-1000. An appetite for continued expansion within the United States comes from an overall ambition internally that'll see it grow its market share, and in doing so, it wants to try and fend off emerging competition. Many airlines that call their own countries home outside of the United States offer trans-Pacific flying, and have faced colossal competition on this segment from airlines such as United. In Australia and New Zealand, this US carrier has expanded considerably and offered large competition for airlines that call the countries it is flying to home. This is evident, for example, even with Air New Zealand, stating that their finances were taking a very hard hit because of elements such as these. Ultimately, Philippine Airlines is seeing something similar, with a reduction in its market share taking place year over year, and it wants to try and change that, believing that future expansion could be the key towards that. It is a risk, but a risk it probably has to take. Over at Airbus, they published figures identifying how their backlog has been faring, and a colossal aircraft order was also unveiled. The major commitment includes 85 aircraft, now this from both narrow and wide-body jets. One of the standout purchases was the A350 series, with the deal consisting of 10 units for the popular wide-body. The split will see 5 for the 900s and 5 for the -1000s. The commitment, however, was primarily led by purchases across the A320 family, with 75 of the 85 aircraft for jets within this family. The unidentified customer at the time did select 55 of the A321neos, an unsurprising purchase as 2025 approaches, with this aircraft being a huge success, even stretching that down to the many derivatives that have been launched. I speak of that unidentified customer. At the time, there have been some murmurs that it has been Air India coming in for more aircraft. Back to the A321neo though, I can't just move past it that quickly. It's been the most popular one across the Airbus portfolio for many years now. Customers just love the additional capacity it brings, and now with the developed derivatives such as the XLR, which is set to launch with Iberia, well, the series just continues to advance and is carving into an uncontested niche. And as we continue to see industry trends move from one thing to the other, the desire for the 321 over the 320 is becoming all the more present. The purchase did also include 20 of your base A320neos, this seen as just a modest single aisle that can be a good one for airlines right around the world. September was a hugely successful month for Airbus overall. Major orders from leading airlines and aircraft lessors were added to its backlog. For example, Cebu Pacific confirmed an order for 70 aircraft, and that followed an MOU that was initially signed in July of this year. Once again, the deal for that includes, unsurprisingly, the A321neo, which is already present in their fleet, but it's seen so much so as an integral part of their long-term future that they just had to go back in for more. In addition, Airbus saw CDB Aviation and Aircraft Lesser order up to 80 jets across the single-aisle portfolio to offer greater flexibility to their airline partners in the coming decade that say may require capacity. The very successful month means that the Airbus backlog is only continuing to grow, and available delivery slots across the next 5 to 10 years that were present continue to become fewer and far between. This can pressure airlines that are, say, debating on purchasing an aircraft to speed up their decision making to ensure that they can get the planes when they need them before another airline takes up those delivery slots, especially in an era where there is so much uncertainty about deliveries and whether manufacturers will actually be able to meet these. The final story in today's recap sits with a new airline that I've not had the chance to take a look at yet until now, but one I recently had the pleasure of plane spotting many a times at Seoul Incheon, and that is Airbus, who have confirmed plans to recommence flying to a critical port in Asia after a pause. That's right, they will offer flight from Busan to Hong Kong International Airport for the first time in many months. Service is expected to commence on the 13th of November, marking the return after a 3-month hiatus, with the A321 to be utilised between the two locations. South Korea and Hong Kong are leading tourism locations and essential pillars of the financial performance right across Asia. As a result, the route resumption will facilitate further travel for key employees at businesses that regularly travel between these two markets, but there still is an emphasis on being able to cater to leisure travel as well. Air Busan suspended the route only a handful of months ago, but does believe that the upcoming resumption aligns with demand that they are witnessing that now they believe they can adequately served. While experiencing one of the hardest few years across the early 2020s because of restrictions, the recovery is something that has been well documented as countries have continued to ease restrictions and people have flocked back to these popular travel destinations. If anything, you are finding airlines like Air Busan simply not able to keep up with the demand. And just generally, when you're battling labour shortages, supply chain issues, and such, you'll struggle to keep up. BX391 is departing Busan at around 9:55 p.m, arriving the next morning at 5:55 a.m. Why is those timings important? Well, Air Busan believes that with a red-eye, it will enable greater connectivity options for not just onward travel, but also you'll ensure that customers have their whole day in their respective location. So if you're in Hong Kong, you'll have the entire day for one to maximize tourism, but also if you're there on a business trip, well, you'll have the entire day to conduct meetings, even if you're just a little bit tired. That'll conclude today's aviation recap. Thanks a bunch for your support here on the channel. Please take care, be safe, and I'll see you tomorrow for another recap.
And we'll fly.